Appamada and its programs are supported by your generosity, and your generosity and support makes such a difference. You can find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org. Thank you.
So we are having a ceremony that draws on a particular, we are having a ceremony that draws on a particular tradition from Japan, in which the Bodhisattva who goes by the name in Japan, Jizo, is acknowledged, and there's a description of Jizo on the back page of the program you have here, and that I shared online as a PDF as well. A protector of travelers, and in Japan there's a particular meaning for Jizo, that Jizo is the Bodhisattva whose action is to help the spirits of unborn children across the great river that they cannot cross on their own because they did not accumulate any good deeds in their lifetimes. And Jizo's role is to help them get across the great river into the next phase. I'm not clear on what that next phase is, but there's a couple of things I wanted to reference in regard to that. There's a story in Harper's Magazine this month about what it was like to be a parent for everybody that was human up until about 150 years ago, which was that you could expect your children to die, almost all of them. That Queen Anne, the last Stuart Queen of England, had 13 or 14 children, all of whom died before they were 7. And it was a unifying factor for all human beings, the poorest to the richest, that this was a fact. And it was only after essentially the invention of sanitary plumbing, and then later on the discovery of various medicines and so on, that it became common for people to expect to live into adulthood instead of to die from measles or mumps or some other cholera or some other childhood disease. My father was an immigrant child in Port Reading, New Jersey. He was born in 1910. He had several older brothers and sisters who died in a cholera epidemic in about 1915. And he survived. He was one of 9 siblings who made it into adulthood. So this was a common thing. And it was a great leveler, a great atomizer that connected people and split them apart also. And I'm reminded also that one of the earliest stories that I learned about in reading about Buddhism, and apparently from the early days of the Buddha's teaching, is a story of Kiso Gotami, a woman whose child has died. She is carrying the child around, and she takes it to the Buddha and says, "Please bring him back to life. My pain is so great. Can you help me?" And he says, everybody knows the story, I'm sure. He says, "Please go to every house in the village, and if you can bring me a mustard seed from a house in which there has not been a death, I'll see what I can do." She goes and she talks to everybody in the village, and she realizes that no one has not suffered a similar tragedy, and she awakens. And to me, that's what this ceremony is about, that we will be addressing prayers to otherworldly beings, Kanon, Jizo, these otherworldly beings who act outside this life, to address souls that are within us or beyond us or something. But in fact, we are gathered together. And our offering is to each other. And yesterday I was with Laurie and Kim and several other people at Appamada, hosted by Nelda Adamson, putting together bags of water and snacks for homeless people in Austin. And I thought, as I often do, gosh, this is a small gesture. This is not very important in the big scheme of things. But as mentioned in the description of Jizo in the program that Peg provided, and that she often emphasizes in previous iterations of this ceremony, the point of Jizo is not the otherworldly action, but the example of courage, of relentless optimism and courage, just moving forward and doing what you can. So all of us have grief, and we will have a chance to speak to that we have grief that because of our modern world, we don't get to share very much. We don't get to connect with other people about very much. But we also have this other side of the Jizo story, which is the opportunity to connect and to reach out and to do what we can to decrease suffering in this world. Thank you for letting me share that. So may I ask if the folks online have some remembrances that they would be willing to share?
This was what I thought was the original Jizo at Appamada, and Nelda has replaced it with one without a broken nose, and I brought it home to fix the broken nose. Peg informed me that this is actually a baby Buddha, but it's right above my desk, and I've been watching it for months and months and months. And in spite of its broken nose, it's looking upward and being so proud. And it reminds me of, the fact that we all have broken noses in one way or another, and still we're like Buddha. So that's my Jizo.
We have Becky next. You're unmuted, Becky.
Thank you. I hadn't paid any attention to Jizo very much up until now, and because of this ceremony, I did a little reading and a little sitting with that. And my sense is that Jizo is about transitions, that's where the suffering in life often happens, certainly the great matters. And that when I think about it, all that we really are is this moment and our relationship to other beings in this moment. And that all of the transitions, which we have thousands every day, but that there are the big ones. And so what I would like to share is the chorus of a song that my sister wrote on our parents' death. So I'm just going to sing it. You are set free to a new becoming, free once more to live anew. On you go, I rejoice for you and wish you ease upon your way.
Thank you so much, Becky. We have Ellen next.
Rainbow. Oh,
You're muted now. Yeah.
Muted now. My symbolic object is this rainbow that my grandson Bird made me, and see, it's got little stands so I can stand it on my desk. And remembrances, all those who died of COVID and their families and friends. All those currently suffering from COVID, especially those in India. My mother and brother who died 2 weeks apart 9 years ago. My brilliant brother who suffers from dementia. And I offer optimism and courage for my grandchildren and all the children who inherit responsibility for this planet.
Thank you, Ellen. Can I go next? I'll go next. Maria next. Hi, I wanted to bring this ornament that you might not be able to see out there in the garden, but it's a very important ornament. Trudy Johnston gave it to me about 20 years ago, and it's a picture of a lady with her arms spread out with birds just landing on her arms, and she gave it to me a long time ago, and it reminds me of all the people in the Sangha that have passed away and that have taught me how to just really embrace life and live in the moment and see the birds, just notice the birds, smell the roses, literally just smell what's around me, see what's around me. And it's really held me steadfast in life. And it was only the other week that Laurie reminded me of this, to really just come back to everything that's just right in front of me. And these people, Ginny, Carrie, Leslie, such beautiful, gorgeous human beings that really taught me about living life to the full and the spirit and what it's all about. So I just want to remember those three people right now. Thank you. We have Sandra next. Okay. Where's she gone? There we go.
So what I'm sharing is this picture postcard of Charles Harper, is the birds. And what this remind me is that everybody's immigrating. We're immigrants. We immigrate from one place to another. Doesn't matter the color, the shape, the size. And at the end, we all go together. And for the people that, all the people that were sick and dying from the COVID, that at the end we are going to reunite together and we keep weaving in this war together. So that's what I'm reading.
Thank you, Sandra. And we have Claudine next.
Yes.
Are you ready, Claudine? There you go, you're unmuted, Claudine.
Yes, thank you. When I was hearing you I thought suddenly that how blessed I was, because I thought that my daughter wouldn't be here anymore and that she's back. And listening to her voice yesterday for the first time since she had the coma, it was as if she was newly born again. And it's just impossible to say the amount of love that I felt her being in life. And she almost passed away because it was through a virus, but because she couldn't process a transition in her life. And she tried to, and she was struggling, and well, it almost killed her. So she's back. And it's a blessing.
Thank you, Claudine. Rosemarie?
Hi. In terms of remembrances, my brother, year and a half younger brother, died when I was 28. He was about 26. Like to remember Andrew. And sorry, you never know when grief is going to hit. And yesterday when I read Joel's invitation late to offer an object, and I found, I took this off my shelf. I don't know if you can see it. So here's that better. So yeah, it's a vase with in clay with birds and flowers. And I made this maybe 15 years ago, and hadn't looked at it. It's on my shelf. It looks really nice, but I took it down to really look at it and saw, you know, the beauty of the nature and the idea of using my hands to create, so kind of supporting life in creating. So that's my offering. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemarie.
So, does it seem like that's the end of the offerings from the people online? Okay. Very good. So, Jessica, I call on anyone who'd like to go first. If you have, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I apologize. But anyone who would like to offer a remembrance for this day, I'd appreciate if you would say your name and go ahead and offer that.
I thought we might put a bench here right beside you so that they can see us.
Well, they can see. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
So you just stay right there. I was looking at it.
Okay.
So if we just sat right here,
All right.
I think people. All right.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, that's good.
So does that work?
Yeah.
That works.
Well, I brought something from my childhood. It is, I think, an exquisite bell. It's a woman, and the bell is her skirt. And this is what my mother would always hand to me when I was sick. to call her. And so when we were dividing up things, I asked for this. And I felt like it was especially appropriate for the Jizo. And as I was coming today, I realized I didn't even have to bring that. With my Rakusu, I had a wonderful example of a Jizo. As I was finishing up my Rakusu, I was deathly ill, and I was trying to get it finished on time. And it was a question of whether I could even get to the envelope. And I went the last day to work on it, and Ann Lipscomb met me, and she was there to sew my envelope for me. And it was just another beautiful example of a Jizo. And may we all be Jizos in people's lives like I've had Jizos in mine.
Chris. Please say your name.
I'm Chris. I couldn't find the object that I wanted to bring, so this will stand in. It's a small black pocket notebook, 7-ring, which is what they used back in the day, well worn and lovingly used. The notebook is about care and tradition. It was my father's service book. My father was a minister, and it contained his wedding, funeral, burial, christening, commitment services back before gay and lesbian marriage was legal. He used it when he married me and my now ex-wife. He used it when he christened my son. I went to seminary intending to become a minister. And that didn't happen, but I'm still empowered to perform services. So I used the notebook when I married my daughter and her husband. And my daughter is still debating whether she wants me to christen her 2 children. So that may happen. And my mother was in the mix too. My father was first-generation Unitarian, raised Jewish. My mother was third-generation Unitarian, which makes me 4th generation. So distilled there in one notebook is generations of care for the current generation, the next, the one before, and a lot of care given and traditions passed down from one generation to the next, and it's one of my precious objects.
Okay. So, well, thank you. Laurie is next.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Laurie. And today I brought, I have 2 Jizos at home, and I wanted to share them. They're very different in their tone. This one, I bought this one, I did a memorial several years ago, not an official Appamada capacity, but for my mother, for her dog. Anyway, and so I got this Jizo, and this Jizo he's the protector. That's what I see anyway. He's very strong looking. So I love that image. And then the other one I have is actually a gift, I think when I was head student from Leela. And this one is very, very different. This is a more typical one where it's got the children climbing all over the Jizo, which is just really lovely. And I kind of see this as more the compassion and caring, and this is more the protecting sort of energy. And so I think about these two qualities in people. And I was kind of turning this Jizo idea of the children dying to the children that live in circumstances where either their mother isn't present physically or emotionally, or they're not wanted, you know, that kind of thing. That happens way too frequently. And so that's why I like these two. I think of this energy of the protecting, so important for children to be protected. And this kind of energy, I think of it, and I think of how other people will do that. They'll fill in the gap. I know that was true in my life. I had some fill-ins that, you know, were so important, and it happens. I see so many people do this. They fill in for families where the children aren't cared for in the best way, perhaps. And so, anyway, that's what I see when I think of Jizo. Thank you. The tight box. Really protecting Mr. Jizo.
Oops. Well, what I brought is a stone from Massachusetts that's very common on the beach there. It says, and they call it a Nantucket lucky stone when you find this striation of the other formation. And I brought it because today is the anniversary of my husband's passing in 2004. And he is buried there. He spent a lot of his early childhood there, and then eventually lived there full time. We never lived there, but we would go back. And I also, my other remembrance is the great nephew that passed away on May 28th at the age of from a sudden death at a very young age of just 4 years ago. And so in honor of Matthew and my late husband, Walter, and all those people who've lost the generations of someone older and someone younger who has to bring these things into some sort of understanding in their mind, how they grieve those losses. And this stone is smooth on one side and a little more rough on the other. So we have to bring these opposing feelings together of understanding. And the Sangha has supported me in my grief and loss as life has evolved. And I'm very grateful to everyone who has helped me along the way and is a Jizo for me.
Good morning. I'm Ann Lipscomb. And I didn't have an object until I got here. And this was on the sidewalk. A branch that got trimmed or pulled off. And it fits together really well, turns out, with what I wanted to remember, which came to my mind while we were walking. And I could smell the incense or the candle, a flame. And being outside and smelling a flame reminds me of my father, who was instrumental in teaching me to love the earth. and camping and naming things in the outdoors and loving being with the earth. But it also came to me that I wanted to keep in mind all the beings and the creatures, plants that have gone on because of climate change and will go on because of climate change. And I'm very grateful, like Bridget, to the Sangha for supporting me in that grief.
One who wants to speak here. I want to name Gertrude. I changed her name to Trudy, and her birth name was Varna, but she later changed her last name to Varna Lloyd, joined with that of her husband, John Varna Lloyd, who also changed his name. Like Anne's father, I owe so much to my sister Trudy. She took me to Colorado for the first time in my life, and that was the first time I ever saw the Milky Way. It was up on a hike in Colorado above trees, and did many, many things that transformed me. Then later on, we had a falling out, and it only got worse over time. And we did not reconcile before her death. She died last October. Today is the date of her birth. She would have been 83 years old today. And just everything that everyone has said, that time is short, that our lives are marked by loss of everything we hold dear. Our own lives will end, and we can't predict exactly when. And it's up to us to take on the spirit of Jizo, as Lori said, to offer to fill in where we can, to be a protector, to be a nurturer, to help out where we can. That's the lesson for me of Jizo, is that fearless optimism, and to not hold back. So let's put a program to get it out of the way so I can bring you. I have a special invocation for the Jizo ceremony that I will read, and then we will say the Heart Sutra together. All great beings of compassion and wisdom, those that see and know a vast view, and hold the turnings and mystery of birth and death. Great bodhisattvas and teachers of East and West, North and South, endowed with great compassion, endowed with love, affording protection to all beings. Through the power of your great compassion, please come forth. Accept these offerings and remembrances, given from our loving hands and grieving hearts. Offerings of flowers, incense, candlelight. Gifts of red and prayers of the wind. All these offerings of words and love. O compassionate ones, you who possess the wisdom of understanding, the power of doing divine deeds and of protecting in incomparable measure. These children honored here today have passed from this world to the next. They have taken a great. The light of us waited for them. They have departed from the known and entered the unknown. They've been borne away by the great ocean of birth and death. O compassionate ones, protect them, for they are defenseless. Each of them like a father and a mother, O compassionate ones. Let the force of your compassion be strong and constant. Aid them. Remember your ancient vows. Help us. Guide and hold us all. As we release these beings, dearly beloved and cherished, we all bring peace and healing to this dream. Sutra is in your program on page 3. Heart Sutra. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when deeply practicing prajnaparamita, clearly saw that all 5 skandhas are empty and thus relieved all suffering. Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. Form itself is emptiness. Emptiness itself form. Sensations, perceptions, formations, and consciousness are also like this. Shariputra, all dharmas are marked by emptiness. They neither arise nor cease, are neither defiled nor pure, neither increase nor decrease. Therefore, given emptiness, there is no form, no sensation, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no sight, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realm of sight, to no realm of mind consciousness. There is neither ignorance nor distinction of ignorance, neither old age and death, nor extinction of old age and death, no suffering, no cause, no cessation, no path, no knowledge, no attainment. With nothing to attain, a bodhisattva relies on prajnaparamita, and thus the mind is without hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Far beyond all inverted views, one realizes nirvana. All is of past, present, and future rely on prajnaparamita, and thereby attain unsurpassed, complete, perfect enlightenment. Therefore know the prajnaparamita as the great miraculous mantra, the great bright mantra, the supreme mantra, the incomparable mantra, which removes all suffering and is true, not false. Therefore we proclaim the prajnaparamita mantra, the mantra that says, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi Swaha. So now we will join in chanting the En-mei Juku Kanan Gyo. Laurie will lead it. She's going to play this wonderful instrument for the Mokugyo, and we'll say it 7 times and they will get gradually faster. The end will be marked by some bells that Jessica will ring, so you don't have to keep going. Laurie and Jessica will ring. And then we will sit in silence, and Jessica will lead the echo for today, and then we will end our service. No, you please stay seated.
En-mei Go Kanan Jo. Kanze On Namu Butsu Yo Butsu U En Yo Butsu U En Bu Po So En Jo Raku Ga Jo Jo Men Kanze On Bo Nen Kanze On Nen Nen Ju
Shin Ki Den Den Fu Ri Shin Kanse On Namu Butsu Yo Butsu Yu In Yo Butsu Yu En Bu Ko So En Jo Raku Ga Jo Cho Rin Kanse On Onen Kanse On Nen Nen Ju Shin Ki Nen Nen Fu Ri Shin Kanse On Namu Butsu Yo Butsu Yu In Yo Butsu Yu En Bu Ko So En Jo Shin Ki Nen Nen Fu Ri Shin Kanse On Namu Butsu Yo Butsu Yu In Yo Butsu Yu En Bu Ko So En Jo Raku Ga Jo Cho En Kanse On Onen Kanse On Nen Nen Ju Shin Ki Nen Nen Fu Ri Shin Kanse On Namu Butsu Yo Butsu Yu In Yo Butsu Yu En Bu Ko So En Jo Raku Ga Jo Cho Nen Kanse On Onen Kanse On Nen Nen Ju Shin Ki Nen Nen Fu Ri Shin Kanse On Namu Butsu Yo Butsu Yu In Yo Butsu Yu En Bu Ko So En Jo Raku Ga Jo Cho Nen Kanse On Onen Kanse On Nen Nen Ju Shin Ki Nen Nen Fu Ri Shin Kanse On Namu Butsu Yo Butsu Yu In Yo Butsu Yu En Bu Ko So En Jo Raku Ga Jo Cho Nen Kanse On Onen Kanse On Nen Nen Ju Shin Ki Nen Nen Fu Ri Shin.
In offering incense, observing silence, and reading and performing the Jizo ceremony, we extend compassionate care to and all those who are gravely ill, lacking basic necessities, or suffering violence in the world in thought, word, or deed. May they be serene through all their suffering, and may they, together with all beings, realize the awakened way.
so much for all you share.